Hi everyone. So we're going to look at our test review for Unit 5. It is a long test review, so I'm going to go over it in two parts. There'll be two videos. So when you're done with this video, make sure to watch the second one. I'm going to do the first 10 questions and then the second 10 questions. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the main things you need to know on this test is you need to know what A and B stand for. If you know those two things, they can help you a lot. Okay, so looking at this particular one is asking you to select two correct answers. On the STAR test and on our test, that happens a lot. So make sure you don't select more than two or less than two. Select exactly two answers. So first, let's talk about the A value. So that has to do with these two here, A and B. A stands for the y-intercept. So this is correct. So if A is the y-intercept, then it is definitely not the growth or decay rate. That would be the B value. That's what B stands for. Okay, so if we look at B, let's see what it tells us. We've got these two to pick from. B is a negative value. No. If B is greater than 1, then it is growth. Okay. If B is between 0 and 1, it is decay. There is no negative B value. It's always positive. So this one doesn't make any sense at all because negative is not something we're going to see. We're never going to see a negative B value. It'll always be positive. But if it's less than 1, but bigger than 0, like 1/2 or 0.25, etc., those ones are all decay because they are less than 1. So we found our other correct answer. And the last one is not correct because it is not a continuous rate of change. Okay, that is not correct. Okay, a continuous rate of change would be if it was a linear function, not exponential. Number 2. Domain and range. This one's interesting. Okay, because it's a real world problem, we can't have all real numbers. So remembering our domain are the x's. Okay. Now our x's, if you look at this point here, which is at 0, 100, 0 is the smallest x value. But it does go on forever, so it includes all positive x values. So our x's are all greater than or equal to 0. There can't be negative hours. So it makes sense that our domain, which is time, is going to be that our time is greater than or equal to 0. So now let's look at the range, which is the amount of medication in the body. So we're going to use y for range. Our highest y value we could see is 100. That's as high as it goes. And it doesn't go any lower than 0. But keep in mind, because this arrow keeps approaching the x-axis, it's never actually going to reach 0. So it is from 0 to 100. But there is actually a point at 100. So 100 is included. So the y values are all less than or equal to 100, but greater than 0. Not equal to 0, because there is no point on the x-axis. So then you just need to go back and look to see which of the answer choices match that. We can tell that the answer choices A, just looking at the domain, you can tell A is wrong because the domain is not between 0 and 100. Guys, 100 is on the y-axis, not the x. And remember, domain is x and range are y. Okay? And same thing goes for C because the domain does not go up to 100. Domain are the x's. Okay? And then when you look at the range, this says all real numbers less than or equal to 100. That includes negatives, and we don't have any negatives. So D was the correct answer. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next one, also domain and range. In this particular one, looking at it, we do have an endpoint there. We can see that the domain, which are the x's, remember, because they want domain in this problem, x. They start at -2 and it's going to the right, which means it's getting bigger. So all of our x's are all greater than or equal to -2. Okay, so let's look at our answer choices, and that would be A. If you see a Y, you should go ahead and mark it out. Use that scratch through tool that you see on Aware, okay, because you don't need, if you know that domain is X, you can eliminate 2 of your answer choices. And remember, draw a line like I did to the X axis to make sure that you know that you've got the X, not the Y. All right, let's look at number 4. Now, personally, if I see a table, the first thing I'm going to do is put it into Desmos. Okay, so give me a moment while I type in that data. Okay, guys, so my data is typed in my table, which we should be pretty good at that by now. On my second line, I'm going to type Y1, and then the little squiggle, and then A, B, and to make an exponent, hit Shift 6, and then type the letter X1. Now, one thing you do need to make sure you hit is the log mode button. Notice how it will change the A and the B values. Hit log mode, and that is where we're at. Our A is about 20.5, and our B is about 1.9. So let's look at our answer choices. There we go. It's answer choice D. Our A value that we were given was 20.5. And our B value was 1.9. And you may have gotten this wrong if you didn't hit the log mode button. So please remember on your test that you do need to hit this button, because look, if I unclick it, those are wrong. These are correct. Okay, make sure that you're clicking the log mode button. Okay. All right, let's go and look at the next one. Same thing, putting in data. Okay, make sure, especially when you have a lot of numbers like this, that you type in your table correctly. Okay, if you don't type it in correctly, then you're going to get the wrong answer. So double check that you type in everything correct. So I'm going to pause the video for a moment. You should too. Give it a try. Type it into Desmos. Okay, we're going to do the same process here. Let's remember Y1, squiggle, AB, Shift 6. We'll make an exponent, but you can use the little keyboard down here to also create an exponent. X1. Hit the log mode button, and then here's our A, and let's go ahead and round it to the, it's already rounded it to the tenths place here, and it looks like our answer choices are rounded to the hundredths place. So this would be 0.93-ish. So let's go ahead and write that down on our answer choices. So the A value, 0.93, we can see is right here. And you can see that answer choice A and C are definitely wrong, but if you look at B and D, they have some of them in the wrong places. Like these two are incorrect in D because they're in the wrong spot. The A value should go first and the B value should go in parentheses. 0.93, I remember, was our B value, and that A value was also there. Okay, so you can do this from the table in Desmos pretty easily. Just make sure they go in the correct places. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next question, number 6. In number 6, notice it says to select 3 correct answers. So first, remembering that the first number is the y-intercept. So A is correct. This value is below 1, which means it is a decay, which means it decreases from left to right. So this is also correct. Okay, and remember, all graphs, think about what the graph of this looks like. You could also graph it yourself in the Desmos calculator. There's the y-intercept, and it's a decay. That there's an asymptote right here that the graph never crosses, remember? So it is a horizontal asymptote. So this is your other correct one. There are no x-intercepts ever because it never touches the x-axis. So C is definitely out. And the asymptote is not x equals 0, it's y equals 0. That is a good hint because you will need to know that on your test. You will definitely need to know that the asymptote is y equals 0. Memorize it, okay? So those 3 that I've highlighted are the correct 3 answers. Remember, don't select more than 3 or less than 3. And you can get partial credit on questions like this. Number 7, also something similar, knowing what the A and the B stand for. Remember, 16, this one only wants one statement that is true. So if you know that this is the y-intercept, 0, 16, remember this is the y, then you know that C is correct. The asymptote, once again, is y equals 0, not x equals 0. There are no x-intercepts, okay? And this point 1, 2, you can always check to see if it is on there by graphing it, but it is not. Let's go ahead and look at number 8. We're finally getting into graphing. So let's talk about how to graph by hand, and then I'll show you how to do it on the calculator, okay? First things first is when you get in there, you need to select the correct type of equation. These are exponential functions, so make sure to select the right one. And let's make a table before we graph it. So our y-intercept is 0, 8. I got that from here. And then if I want additional points, I take the rate, which is 1/2, and we multiply the first y value by 1/2, multiply. So 8 times 1/2 is 4. And then keep multiplying by 1/2 the rate. 4 times 1/2 is 2. 2 times 1/2 is 1. So I have lots of awesome points that I can plot to create my graph. Okay, and the graph will look something like this. Now let's look to see how you would actually do it on Aware, okay? So here's what it looks like. Okay. Select exponential and see it automatically plots points for you. So I'm going to change my y-intercept to 8. Okay. And then I look back at what was my second point that I found, and it was at 1, 4. And I'm going to move this point to 1, 4. And you can see the other points are on there too, 2, 2, and 3, 1. Okay. And you can check your answer by clicking on the Desmos calculator and typing in the equation, y equals 8, or I believe it might have been f of x. F of x equals 8, parentheses, 1/2, raise shift 6 to the x power. And there it is, and you can actually see it. And there was a new trick I showed you in class today where you could click the gear and click the table, and it'll give you points that are on the graph that you can then plot digitally. Okay, so there's 0, 8, and there's 1, 4, and see, I made sure that there was a point at 0, 8, and 1, 4. You only need 2 points, okay? And questions 9 and 10 are also like this, where you're graphing. So try 9 and 10, and then I will show you the correct answers. Okay guys, so once again, I created a table. I started with 0, 2, which was the y-intercept. And then I kept multiplying that 2 by 3 to get the next number. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 3 is 18. 18 times 3 is 54 to get my other points. So I only really need 2 points, the y-intercept and then 1, 6. So the y-intercept, let's go ahead and hit exponential. The y-intercept was at 2. And then 1, 6 was my other point. None of the other points would have fit on here. It was too tall of a graph. They were too big to fit on there. So let's look at 10 as well. These are pretty easy actually to do without even thinking about it. My y-intercept is 9, so I'm going to move this up to 9. And then I need to find out what is 9 times 1/3. It is 3. And then 3 times 1/3 is 1. So you can see there's a point here at 1. Okay. So hopefully that helped with graphing, guys. This is the end of part 1 video. I will do questions 11 through 20 on the second video. Okay, so make sure to watch both and have a great day, guys.